Basketball has always been more than just skill, God-given talent, and ability. There's also a mental aspect. You not only have to possess a deep knowledge of the game, but you also have to be mentally strong to endure the challenges and pressures that come with being an NBA player. That's even more so if you want to be one of the greats of the game. Michael Jordan and LeBron James have mastered this skill. That's why they're both worthy of the elusive GOAT title. But when you're choosing the greatest player of all time, you have to pick apart differences. The challenging part about this discussion is that there is no statistic that we can point to that determines who has the mental edge. What we can do is dissect their actions and listen closely to the testimonials of their teammates and competitors. After reviewing all these factors, we'll see exactly why this player deserves to be the GOAT. The first aspect is how they use mind games to gain a psychological advantage over their opponents. Most people call it fear, others intimidation. No matter the term you prefer to use, it's clear that you'll gain a competitive advantage when you're causing your opponent to walk on eggshells. There are more than enough testimonials that are out there to conclude that both players were feared. The question is, who uses Jedi mind trick better? Let's check out what Denver Nuggets coach Michael Malone said to the USA Today back in 2020. Quote, "I coached LeBron James for 5 years and have a great relationship with him. LeBron did not have the same mindset or killer mentality that Michael Jordan is supposed to have." He continues saying, "Michael Jordan was not just a great player. He would reach into your chest and pull your heart out if he had to win a game. You don't see that really often. He had that killer mindset and brought it every single night. That's why all these many years later, he's the greatest of all time." End of quote. We've never seen a killer like him. His performance and intensity in the playoffs always went to another level because he always felt like he had something to prove. It came to the point where there was an unwritten rule in the mid to late 90s that you don't talk trash or even look at him funny. Take for example what former New Jersey Nets player Jason Williams told Details magazine, quote, "You don't want to look him in the eye because he takes it as a challenge like a Doberman would. He's looking for any incentive to beat you." End of quote. When Steve Smith played against the Bulls in the 1997 playoffs, he told Sports Illustrated that you can't afford to get frustrated against him because if he sees you get down, then he'll try to crush you. You hear so many stories that coaches tell their players, keep your head down, shut up, and don't give him any reason to get going. That might be an intangible aspect of his game, but there's a reason why former players always mention it. It's because it affected his opponents. Can we say the same about LeBron? Well, we have conflicting reports. There are some players, such as George Hill and Draymond Green, who mentioned that their teammates or themselves were terrified of him. But then we have former teammates who said the exact opposite. Mario Chalmers mentioned to the OG show that nobody fears LeBron. Then Shaq mentioned in his own podcast that he's never really heard any player say that they feared LeBron as he did with Jordan or Kobe. It's obvious that his contemporaries don't all feel the same way. But with Jordan, there are no doubts about his killer will. That's why you would have to give him the edge in this aspect. The questions on LeBron's killer will was a topic of discussion in the summer of 2010. It's the most controversial free agent move in NBA history. It's when he publicly decided to take his talents to South Beach and form a super team along with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. I'm not here to criticize his right to choose which team he wants to play on. Let's not bring a 14-year-old debate back to life. But we do see a clear difference in the way they handle their playoff failures. Let's start with the similarities. They both were having trouble defeating a team that was superior in talent. Jordan lost to the Pistons in 3 straight years. LeBron lost to the Celtics twice between 2008 and 2010. The Chicago Bulls and the Cleveland Cavaliers were not considered deep enough to defeat their rivals, who were full of star players. There is no question that Michael and LeBron were frustrated with their situation. So how did they choose to handle it? This is how Jordan responded after an embarrassing loss to Detroit in Game 7 of the 1990 Conference Finals. Quote, "I'm proud of the season and what we achieved. So I'm going to look at this as a learning experience. Certainly, some guys didn't play as they were capable, but that happens. You've got to move on and try to see that you can go farther next year. End of quote. He didn't plan on going anywhere. He was going to keep climbing that mountain until he reached his goal. He was not going to take the easy way out. His teammates needed to get tougher to defeat the bad boy Pistons. So there were times when he openly questioned whether his teammates were tough enough to beat them. We could debate on whether or not he took the right approach, but we can't argue with the results. They came back the following year, swept the Pistons, and won the title. It was the beginning of the greatest dynasty of the modern NBA. This was much different than LeBron's approach. He joined a team that had two established superstars. They were unquestionably the most talented team with his arrival. I can't help but to wonder if that's why many of his contemporaries don't have that same level of fear as Jordan's did. Although they ended up defeating the Celtics in 5 games, they lost in the finals as the heavy favorites. If you remember, this is where the talking heads ceased all Michael Jordan comparisons. It wasn't just the multiple bad games they had in the series against Dallas. Everyone is guilty of playing poorly in the finals. The problem was how passive and detached he was in critical moments in the fourth quarter. He kept deferring to his teammates even when he had favorable matchups. How else could you explain those performances other than some kind of mental block that he couldn't hurdle over? The reason why I mention this is because this seems to be a pattern of behavior. This was not a one-time offense. Remember Game 5 of the 2010 semifinals against Boston when he also wasn't aggressive on offense. Every so often, he has to fight those demons when things don't go his way in the playoffs. He would seem visibly frustrated and then check himself out of the series. That mindset of fighting till the end, of shooting until your bullet chamber is empty, is not something that can always be said about him. On the other hand, Michael Jordan has a reputation of leaving nothing on the court, even in the toughest moments. We go back to Game 7 against Detroit in 1990. Imagine his frustrations. He lost to this team twice already. He hears everybody criticizing his style of play, that it would never result in winning championships. He wants to beat this team badly, but his teammates fail him. They shot a combined 15 of 63 from the field, or 24%. But if you watch the game, Jordan never stopped shooting. He never stopped looking for his teammates. He never stopped competing. This isn't just a one-game sample. He maintained that mindset throughout his career. Even if he had to go 12 of 32 from the field, or 9 of 35 from the field, he was going to keep being aggressive. His stats were not as important as winning the game. So even the few times he failed as a competitor, you couldn't question his mindset. That never wavered. That mindset of always competing is reflected in other areas. For example, his refusal to take any games off. And I mean that in the most literal sense. There were 9 times where he played all 82 games of the regular season. A lot of that has to do with luck. Not all players are as fortunate to remain healthy throughout the course of the season. Some players are simply injury prone. But that is not a term that we can use to describe LeBron James. He is arguably the most durable athlete we have ever seen. Therefore, this would be a fair comparison to make. LeBron has played all 82 games once in his career. Why is that? Does he get injured that much? Let's take a look at the evidence. Do you see those random games off that he's taking? We're looking at his game log from 2015, 2016, 2017, and beyond. Those were rest days, aka load management. This was something that he clearly participated in. I'm not inferring that this is a bad thing. Sports science is a big part of these players' lives, and the data backs up the benefits of this. However, on many occasions, many of the modern day players have complained about the mental drain they experience during the season. It's tough to get up for every game. If that's the case, then it takes a physically and mentally strong player to perform at a high level every single game. You have to be able to fire yourself up, to block out all the pain and perform. This was the case for Michael. Unless there was something seriously wrong with him physically, he was out there playing. LeBron has claimed he would do the same unless he wasn't healthy. But that clearly wasn't the case, when there are plenty of reports that list him out for resting purposes. I can assure you that Jordan has strong opinions on load management, and he would overrule any coach who wanted to sit him out. He knew how important the regular season was to be prepared for the playoffs. That's hard to do if you're sitting on the sidelines. If he wanted his troops to be ready, he needed to set an example. We mentioned that it's tough for the players to get up for every game, but it's even tougher after winning a title. You lose some of that fire and motivation after reaching the mountaintop. But with the Chicago Bulls, they always remain dominant after winning it all. Check out their records. They went from winning 61 games in 1991 to 67 games in 1992. Then they went from winning 72 games in 1996 to 69 games in 1997. What was their secret? Among many things, it was Michael's demand for excellence. He knew how easy it was to be complacent after experiencing so much success. For example, in 1998, the Sun Sentinel asked a few of Jordan's teammates what it was like playing with him, and they gave some interesting answers. For example, Brian Williams said this, quote, "You feel like you're taking a test. It's more just a measure of your character, your personality, because he wants to know if you're out there on the court with him, what he can expect, how far you're willing to fight. With a guy as good as him, the test never ends." End of quote. It's no wonder that the Chicago Bulls' triangle offense ran like a well-oiled machine. They were overly prepared, and their on-floor leader had a lot to do with that. He was very cerebral with his approach. Instead of simply winning games with his greatness alone, he wanted his teammates to also contribute by playing their roles to perfection. In LeBron's case, he deserves all the credit in the world for Miami's dominant season in 2013. That was when they repeated as champions and won 66 games. His leadership and availability had a lot to do with their historical season. But in his last two titles, his team was considerably worse in the following years. For example, the Cavaliers went from 57 wins to 51 in 2017. Once he joined the Lakers in 2019, he has become less and less available for his team. His advanced age surely has a lot to do with that. But remember, even at 40 years old, Michael played all 82 games in his final season with the Washington Wizards. He had that old school mentality until the very end, and it helped bring 6 titles to the Bulls. I believe those were the clear distinctions between these legendary players. With Michael Jordan, behind all that success and glamour, was a player who dominated the game with his body and mind. We may never see anything like it ever again. But what about you all? What do you think was the biggest difference between Jordan's and LeBron's mentality? Who do you think was stronger in that aspect? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.